everyone, it's Sylvia here from Casino Library and welcome to Tangles on Tuesday. In this series, we're going to take you through the process of creating beautiful art pieces known as Zentangle. Hello everyone, can't believe it's Tuesday again. Welcome back to week 12 of Tangles on Tuesday. Today we're starting off with a tangle called Gneiss, and it's spelt Gneiss. Now this tangle starts with the circle and it's ideal for filling in any circular areas in your Zentangle designs. So I've just drawn in a circle there. So our next step is to add just a small dot somewhere within that circle that we've just drawn. Now for today I've drawn mine in the center, but we could offset that and have that anywhere within our circle. From this dot, we use that to divide our circle into a minimum of 8 sections. You can have 12, you can have 16, but for today, let's just start with 8 and get you started with this tangle. So dividing it into halves, then into quarters, and passing through that circle, that dot that we placed inside our circle each time. So I've got my quarters. Now I'm going to divide it into 8. So I'll do 2 diagonal lines to get that. Nice and simple. And back the other way. And there we are. There's our circle divided into 8s. Now, in each of those pieces or wedges, we're going to draw a V shape. So a line coming down. Now, the center of the V does not have to be centered on that piece, on that wedged section. It can be offset, that's not a problem. It doesn't have to be deep, but you don't want to come all the way down. I'll do one to show you. So I'm just going to put a dot for where the bottom point of my V will be, and there you go. That's my first one done. Then I'm going to draw a line from the bottom point of that V down to the center where we made that little dot. So coming from that bottom of the V and down to the center. And that's the next step. So we're going to do that 7 more times. So each of these segments here, we're going to do a V shape. So let's go and do that. And remembering, just keep moving your card. You don't need to hold your pen too tight or too firm, just relaxed in a manner that's comfortable for you, and moving your card so it's on the right angle for you to draw what you need. Sometimes you do feel like you're twisting and turning and almost turning yourself inside out. Don't worry, that's all normal. Some of my sections are a little bit wider than others, but it's not a problem because there are no mistakes when it comes to Zentangle. I can't stress that enough. So if this is your first time watching our Tangles on Tuesday, you'll be sick of hearing me saying it. And if this is your first time, sorry, yeah, I do repeat it because I really want you to enjoy the whole Zentangle process, knowing that you can't make a mistake. All right, so we've done our V shape in each of those remaining 7 sections. Now we're going to find the bottom tip of that V shape and draw a line from that tip down to the center. So here, 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 here. So there should be 7. So looking for that, and that's the one I did to show you. Looking for that dip or that lower point of the V and bringing a straight line back to the center. So just take your time to do that. Now these videos are available for you to watch anytime, at your own leisure, at your own pace. Okay, so just work your way around. Bottom of that to V. can work from the center out. It's up to you, whatever's comfortable for you, but you will learn to be drawing on different angles as we go. Like I said, you'll learn to draw backwards, forwards, sideways. So there we have it. We have our, we've divided those sections now in half again from the bottom of that V shape. So in fact, we've got 16 wedges now. And I'm going to shade every second one. So looking at this point here, I'm going to shade it on this side and leave that one blank. Shade it, leave blank. And by doing that, we create some really nice depth and dimension to this tangle. And just by varying the size of that initial circle that we do, you can change the look of it completely. So there you are. That's one coloured. I'm going to miss this one and colour the next. And you're going to continue doing that all the way around. I could, if I wanted, instead of shading each of these wedges, I could do circles inside of it, or lines, another tangle, fine tangle if I wanted to. So you can see there the lovely effect of depth and dimension that we get by shading every second segment, which I've done with my 0.4 pen. I decided to draw over my initial circle with the 0.4 just to highlight that a little extra, and also did the same on these lines here, which we drew when we were doing our V shapes. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. Now I'm going to finish off with my 0.1 pen, and in these sections here, in between our V and our outer circle, I'm going to draw in some lines that will aura each other. I'm going to use the outside of my circle as my guide. So the next line, I'm going to come down from that, and I'm going to keep repeating till I filled in that space. So let's have a look at that. So just taking your time, just drawing in those lines. Remember to keep breathing. Right, as close together or as far apart as you like. So that one's done. So I'm going to repeat that in the 7 remaining sections. And again, just keep turning your card so that it's comfortable for you, drawing in a direction that's comfortable for you, and just echoing. And depending on how I've drawn my circle and my V shapes will determine the size of this area, and therefore how many circles I can, how many lines I can get in there. So see, that's starting to form up really nicely. So there you are. I finished adding in those lines that are echoing each other, and that's my tangle done. I'm going to quickly do another one to show you what that would look like if I were to vary that center dot. So if I were to offset it, how that can change the look of this tangle. So I'm going to, this time, I've drawn my circle, but this time my center dot is way up here. Not here in the middle, but right up here. Still breaking that up into 8ths. So each line passing through that center dot. So that's what it looks like in quarters. And let's just continue that and divide it into 8. So it's already very different looking. So already it's looking quite different to this one here. Same process again, drawing in those V's in each of these sections, and those V shapes are going to look rather different too because of my circle or my center dot being different. And I'm going to work with the shape that's there, and I'm going to elongate my V to fit in with this shape of the wedge here. Probably should have gone a little bit deeper, but that's okay. And we're going to keep going around, adding those in just like before. Looking at the movement that's happening with your lines and your circle. So that one's better. I've gone a little bit deeper. These are the smaller sections. And if you've curved your lines slightly, remember to do the same when you're drawing your V. Just working with those curves and lines that you've already established. Okay, so one more. Just drop it down. Okay, so it is extremely different to this one. And again, the next step is from the bottom of that V shape, draw a line back to the center, and we do that 7 times. We do that from the bottom point of each of those V's. So we'll quickly do that. And remember to keep turning as you go. Wow, this is different. I hadn't, to be honest, I hadn't tried doing it offset. I thought I'd save that for today's video, and we'll find out together just what that's going to look like. I've got one more there. Okay, so look at that. Wow, that's actually looking really interesting. So we'll keep going. Okay, so I'm going to shade it in the same way. I'm going to shade every second wedge, and we'll see what that looks like. It's going to look very, very different to our first one. So here I finished the shading, same as I did in this one, every second wedge, and it almost looks like a comet or something pushing through the air, because we've placed our center dot offset as opposed to centering it in this one. You can really play with that and create all sorts of illusions. We can fill in these spaces here with our fine lines again, which I'll go ahead and do. And for some added interest, sorry, I'm doing that with my 0.1 just for a little bit of contrast, keeping it nice and fine. Okay, so that section's done there. I could add maybe some circles through here if I wanted to, or I could use them instead of the dark shading, and I'm just going to use this one as an example to show you what that would look like. Just coming along and drawing in your circles to fill in that wedge like I have there, and then just colouring the very slight areas in between those circles, just shading that as well to offset those circles and really make them stand out. Just carefully shading any white in between each circle. So you can see the difference that makes already. It's quite clever indeed. So that's a really, really fun tangle. I'll go ahead and finish off this line work and those circles, and we'll come back and see what that looks like. So there we have it. That's our variation on the Gneiss tangle. This was our original. That's a variation. So it's really, really simple just to change that very quickly and very easily. So that's the tangle called Gneiss. The second tangle I'd like to show you today is called Indirella. And this tangle is quite unique in that the lines never ever touch each other, and it also is made up of lots of auras. So starting up here, I'm just going to make a small dot. That's all it is, just a small dot there. And now I'm going to do an aura around that dot that comes about halfway around. So like that. And I'm going to repeat that with another aura. And I'm going to repeat that again, making the next aura slightly longer, as you can see there. And I'm going to keep repeating that, making my aura longer again. Now you can keep going, making your aura longer until you are happy with that, and then we start making them smaller and petering off. I'm actually going to start petering off now. So the next aura I do is slightly shorter, as will be the next one, and the next one. And you just keep going until those auras, they don't touch each other, finally peter out and finish with the dot. So it's just a matter of starting with the dot. Think of it as a letter C, just a line that comes halfway around that circle. Your next aura is longer again and longer again. I tend to do mine, I'll do 3 auras. So I'll start with my first one and then 2 slightly bigger, and then I'll start to size them down again. There are different ways you can draw this particular tangle, and again, no right or wrong. Just play with it, experiment with it. I find that when I am doing it, I do tend to do it a little smaller. I also, once I'm used to drawing it, tend to go quite quickly with it. So I'm going to pop another dot just here to start my next Indirella. So just in here, my aura coming about halfway around, slightly longer, and then I start to peter it out. So that's a smaller one sitting in there. Kind of remind me of fish, school of fish or some tadpoles. And you can fill up an entire space, or you can just use them in a smaller area. Again, they're versatile and it's up to you. I do another one in here. Okay, so your dot, then your aura. Next one's a bit longer and a bit longer again. I'm going to keep making these a bit longer so that you can see that I never touch, when I'm drawing my lines, I don't actually touch another tangle, another one of those Indirellas. Even though I've come very, very close, my lines aren't touching. So remembering that with this tangle, these lines here never touch, and the lines of the individual Indirella never touch. So it's very unique in that way. And it's also made up of lots and lots of auras. So early on when we learnt Crescent Moon, which is this tangle here, and we were doing lots of auras, that's one of the tangles that it's good to learn early in the piece, and it gets you used to doing those auras, which you can then bring into lots of other tangles. So I'll just continue on with my Indirella, and you will keep turning your page so it's comfortable for you. I'm going to start making a little bit smaller again, each one slightly shorter, until they just fade out to a small dot on the tail. You can do several dots, you can do 1 dot, you can do 10 dots, whatever you like the look of. It's a really flexible tangle. I'll do another one here. So again, doing your small, coming around about halfway, then slightly longer, longer again. You can keep going, making them as long as you like. being careful not to touch another another tangle close to it. So now I'm going to start going a bit shorter. I'm actually going to favor one side as I come around, and you'll see that it actually gives me a bit of a curve in my tail, so I can give that movement as well by coming around with my aura as I do it. So I'll try and do that again for you. I'll do one here. Sorry, I find this too hard to do upside down, this particular one. I'm going to have to do it right angle. So aura, slightly longer, slightly longer, slightly longer, one more a little bit longer, but not touching. You'll see that I'm not touching any lines anywhere here. Now I'm going to start to shorten them up. As I do so, I'm going to favor the bottom part of the auras. So I'm going to favor closest to me, and I'm going to bring that round, and you can see it's got a curve there as well. So we can keep going with that, filling up as much or as little of your space that you're working with. But do practice, just take your time. And it is, as I remember, just doing aura after aura after aura. You don't have to have them grouped like this. You can just do them. You can spread them out. It's entirely up to you. Just give it a little flick so you can see the effect. That's great. It's a nice simple one, but really effective. It's fun. I do like that particular tangle, as I do all of them. I don't know that I have a favorite. So I'll pop another one in here. Longer, longer aura, longer again. Maybe one more longer, and then start to shorten them up. So you can see you can get a really, really nice effect with those. What we can do with our shading is just shade along, say, the underside. Call it the underside. So a little bit of very light pencil work on your underside there. Just do a couple. Right, so I've put in a light pencil here and here. Take your paper stump, your blending tool, and just work that in so that it smooths and blends. Just moving it around in little small circles I find works well, gives me a nice even, and you can see the effect you can get just by doing some light shading. You don't have to shade at all, you can leave them as they are, but again, don't be afraid to play with things like that. So that's a really cool one. That's called Indirella. So this is last week's challenge tile with the string that I left for you to have a go at. And as I say, strings are there as a guide. Now what I came up with illustrates beautifully the fact that you don't have to work entirely within the string that is there. As you can see with my finished tile, I used this part of the string here as a guide to start my onomatopoeia tangle, and continued it up using the edge of the string here as a guide as to where to stop and start with my lines for that one. And then I had all good intentions of doing my poke leaf around this part of my string, but it had a mind of its own and I ended up filling the entire space, which I'm quite happy with. That's what tangling's all about. Just go with the flow. just let it evolve on its own accord. I wasn't quite sure. It was quite stark with the white background, and the other tangles that we've done so far, really nothing jumped out at me as far as a filler. So just some small dots with the tip of my 0.1 pen. Perfect. That's all it needed. Set it off nicely. I also shaded here where the stems meet the leaf, and I shaded the bottom of those large circles in the onomato. And to finish off, a little bit of crescent moon just to fill in that bottom section there. So there you have it. That's my tile, challenge tile from last week. I'd love to see what you're creating, so please share them in the comments below. I'm only too happy to see what you're all coming up with your So here's your challenge tile for this week, and I've drawn in a string with 2 circular areas for you to practice your Gneiss tangle. You don't have to do it in both of them. You can do it in one or both, whatever you would like to do. And if you can practice your Indirella, and feel free to add a few more strings into that particular tile. But that's what I've given you to start off. So have fun with that. So that's your challenge tile for this week. In the comments below, you'll find a link to the practice sheet that I've been using here today. You'll also find a link to this week's challenge tile. If you're unable to access these from your computer at home, we'll make some packs available. All you have to do is give us a call on 666 00 250 and give us a day or two to get those ready for you. That pack will also include some pre-cut 3.5 by 3.5 inch tiles to get you started. We also have a Hobbies and Crafts Reference Centre, which is a part of our e-resources that are available on our library website. And remember, if you'd like to receive instant updates when new content is added to our YouTube channel, please click the subscribe button. Thanks for joining us here today, and we'll see you next week for another Tangles on Tuesday.